They say emotions make us human, that you should trust your heart, express yourself, never bottle anything up. But Machiavelli didn't believe any of that, because he understood something most people never realize until it's too late. The more you feel, the more they can control you. Your emotions make you predictable. Your reactions expose your weaknesses, and your sensitivity, if it is untrained, is just a handle for anyone to grab and pull you in any direction they want. Love someone too openly, they'll use it. Care too visibly, they'll test it. Show fear, they'll exploit it. And if you react quickly, they'll win quickly. They didn't panic when insulted. They didn't melt under affection. They weren't desperate for approval. That didn't mean they were cold. You watch the world like a strategist, not a servant. And that kind of stillness, make no mistake, it terrifies people who rely on emotional games to control others. It meant they were in control. That's what Machiavelli aimed for. Not to become a machine, but to be a man who couldn't be shaken from the outside. That feeling something deeply is the same as telling the truth. He lived in a world of betrayal, power shifts, and political games. There's a big difference between emotional suppression and emotional control. He realized emotions make you loyal to the wrong people. He didn't write The Prince to complain about how unfair the world was. He wrote it to document how power really works. But real intelligence, it's when you feel deeply and still respond with precision, not with panic. Machiavelli trained for that, and you can too. Most people aren't strong enough to face that reality. He turned heartbreak into pattern, recognition. So now, when someone smiles too quickly, praises too eagerly, agrees too often, he doesn't feel warmth. He feels warning. Who vanished the moment they didn't need you anymore? What did you feel? Shame, sadness, rage? That pain isn't just trauma. It's data. Every betrayal is a signal. Every disappointment, a reminder. That's your training ground. But he was. And he wanted others to be too. The kind who'll betray you the second it benefits them. So he made a decision. If he was going to suffer again, it would be for strategy, not love. Because when you can feel nothing when necessary, you don't just hold power, you become it. It became what it was meant to be, a signal, a layer of intel, not a steering wheel. Through watching everything he built be destroyed by the people he once called allies. You don't build immunity by hiding, you build it by exposure. And you don't collapse under pressure, you stand up inside it. He gave his loyalty to those he thought deserved it. And they threw him out, locked him up, tortured him, erased him from history. Carefully, always alert. Not because he failed, but because power shifted. And loyalty meant nothing anymore. I thought they wouldn't hurt me. I thought they wouldn't walk away. But that kind of thinking comes from trust. And trust, he realized, is rooted in emotion. The same emotion that blinds you to the warning signs until it's too late. Suppression is ignoring what you feel. Control is knowing exactly when, where, and why to express it. You don't pretend to feel nothing. You just don't show everything. Not unless it serves your goal. Friends became enemies overnight. Allies changed sides at the first sign of trouble. Kings lost their thrones because they trusted the wrong smile. In that kind of world, you couldn't afford to be emotional, not even a little. He wrote, "Men are driven by two impulses, love and fear." And he chose fear, because love makes you soft, easy to read, easy to break. Fear keeps you sharp, keeps others guessing. That vulnerability is strength. But look back, how many times did getting emotional lead you to be taken advantage of? How many times did you forgive too soon? Overreact and end up looking unstable? Confess something too personal and have it thrown back at you later? That's not emotional growth. That's emotional exposure. And it doesn't free you, it gives someone else the key to your cage. That's why Machiavelli wasn't just a master of politics, he was a master of himself. Because no strategy matters if your emotions can be hijacked at any moment. You respond without thinking. You speak without measuring. You move before you observe. And that's dangerous. You end up dependent, chasing feelings, craving validation, letting others dictate how you see yourself. It doesn't take genius to defeat you, just someone who knows how to push your buttons. Since you were little, you were probably told that being open means being honest. Machiavelli didn't live in an age of therapy and vulnerability posts. When you let your emotions lead, you become reactive. The people throughout history who truly held power shared one trait: emotional stillness. Because once you stop reacting to every emotional wave, you start acting with purpose. You become unreadable. You listen more, say less. Now you might wonder, isn't that just being numb? Not really. That's the difference between a warrior and a victim. Machiavelli didn't want to feel nothing. He wanted to feel on command. But he wasn't born like that. He was made through betrayal, through exile. That was his first lesson. People love you until you become inconvenient. So what did he do? Cry, plead for forgiveness, beg to be seen again? No. He watched. He studied. He detached. Every betrayal starts with the same mistake. I thought they wouldn't. I thought they wouldn't. Lie. The moment Machiavelli changed wasn't driven by rage, it was driven by realization. You might think you're emotionally intelligent because you feel deeply. Start by looking back. Who hurt you? Who lied to you? Machiavelli didn't numb himself. He studied his pain until it lost control over him. Because once you learn from your pain, you stop stepping into the same traps. Machiavelli didn't hide from corruption. He stood next to it, and he didn't absorb it emotionally. He watched it like a surgeon, quietly. Over time, emotion stopped making decisions for him. That's what emotional sovereignty looks like. You don't run from emotions. You just refuse to be ruled by them. Machiavelli didn't detach for a peace, he detached for power. Because once you master your emotions, you gain a unique advantage. You automatically gain control over those who haven't. Most people are still ruled by their need to be liked, their fear of being judged, their desperation to feel understood. The one who explains too much isn't sure they're understood. But the one who waits silent, calm, observing when they finally speak, everyone listens, not because they're loud, but because they're grounded. That's Machiavelli and presence. True authority isn't volume, it's gravity. They lash out when they're hurt. They confess when they're scared. They talk too much when they're nervous. You still feel. You still care. You still want things. That's not charisma, it's emotional control expressed physically. He trained himself to pause, not react, because in that pause is where power lives. When you move with purpose, speak slowly, sit calmly while others fidget and flail, you send a signal. You're grounded. You don't need to prove anything, and that makes others unsure of themselves around you. Their chaos starts to orbit. You're calm, but no one outside of you has access to that anymore. Let them show their hand. Let them waste energy trying to trigger you. You conserve yours. That makes you more dangerous. If someone says, "You seem off. Are you okay?" you simply say, "I'm processing." If they ask, "What are you thinking?" you say, "A lot," but nothing urgent. You're not lying, you're just giving them nothing to use. You don't react to every insult. You don't crumble at rejection. You watch. You take notes, not by being fake, but by being disciplined. Because emotional clarity invites manipulation. Ambiguity protects you. The less they know what affects you, the more they guess, and the more they guess, the less control they have. You gather information not to attack, but to understand. You just walk. No drama, no speech, just space. Machiavelli wouldn't waste time explaining why. Because real power doesn't need a closing statement, it just disappears. They can read you. They can time their attacks. They can twist your emotions into leverage. Felt misunderstood and rushed to explain yourself. Machiavelli would feel the same pressure and stay silent anyway. That's where real control is born, in the refusal to relieve discomfort. Because most people fail in that moment. They overcorrect. They panic. They say too much. But if you can hold stillness when everything in you wants to move, you've already won. Machiavelli used that pause like a weapon. Because in that space between what they do and how you respond, you take back control. You won't pretend to be neutral, you will be. You won't act unbothered, you'll simply be untouched. Not because you don't feel, but because others can't reach what you feel. You've taken your emotions off the table, and that is the ultimate power. Play, not just of your words, but of the entire room. Because only you know what's happening inside you now. Everyone else, they guess. And guesswork always leads to fear. Because the person no one can read is always the most powerful person in the room. But when you don't do any of that, you become something else entirely. Still. Don't flinch, and they'll question if they went too far. Don't chase closure, and they'll spiral, wondering why they no longer affect you. The more emotionally detached you become, the more power others hand you without meaning to, and in that stillness, you become powerful in any group. Watch carefully. The one who speaks first is usually trying to impress the one who interrupts. Fears being forgotten. If they try to guilt you, they're insecure. If they flatter you too much, they want control. If they ignore you, they crave attention. Machiavelli learned to treat emotion like intel. Every reaction reveals weakness. Every weakness is an opening if you're patient enough to wait. Control yourself and others will follow your lead without even realizing it. Stay calm. They'll start adjusting their tone. Machiavelli understood that silence creates panic. When you don't react, people start projecting. They reveal more than they intend. They talk to fill the space, to read your silence. They expose their fears, their insecurities, their motives without you saying a word. You just sit still. Let them talk. And they tell you everything. Because silence feels like judgment, like power. Like maybe you know something they don't. People expect you to follow a script. They insult you and expect you to fight back. They guilt you and expect you to apologize. They ghost you and expect you to chase. But when you don't, when you break that emotional rhythm, they lose control. You introduce uncertainty, and uncertainty is terrifying to the emotionally reactive. You are no longer predictable. You are no longer playing their game. You're reshaping the board. Let's make something clear here. Detachment is not the same as apathy. You ever notice that the quietest person is often the one no one dares to provoke? Machiavelli didn't learn this from books. He learned it in real conversations, in the middle of betrayal, while navigating politics filled with backstabbing and ambition. Someone insults you. Pause. Someone tries to guilt you. Pause. Someone begs, cries, manipulates. You don't match their energy, you hold your center. Once you control the tempo of a conversation, you start controlling its direction. That's not just emotional discipline. That's strategy. Let them speak first. Because people tell you who they are based on how they try to make you feel. You don't owe anyone emotional clarity. That's how you train your ambiguity. If a conversation is no longer productive, you don't argue your way out of it. Ever been in an awkward silence and felt the pressure to speak over time? You won't have to fake it. It'll become your nature. You won't have to rehearse detachment. You won't have to pause before responding. You'll simply exist in stillness, unbothered and shaken and readable. You've become the strategist. The one who listens without flinching, moves without warning, disappears without drama, and commands without ever raising their voice, not because you shut off your emotions, but because you've trained yourself to only feel when it serves your purpose. You ask, what outcome do I want? And then you choose your weapon: stillness, silence, or strike based not on feelings, but strategy. But once you've trained yourself to hold your own feelings like a fortress no one gets in, and no one forgets the one they couldn't enter, you become the mystery, the standard, the unresolved equation in their story. You don't chase after closure. You move when it's time. You speak when it matters. You vanish when needed. You return without apology. You command without effort. And the truth is, people never move on from mysteries. They orbit them. Long after you've gone, you get messages designed to provoke. Social media wants you to react instantly. Friends guilt you into oversharing. Workplaces thrive on emotional confusion, not skill. And in that chaos, your emotional stillness becomes your shield. Your sword. Your signal. That's the final form Machiavelli would train for. That's not just strength. That's sovereignty. From being ruled by others to ruling yourself. Machiavelli didn't achieve emotional mastery in silence or retreat. He did it in the mess and the betrayals, the rejection, the exile. He learned to see through lies, to hear through noise, to move through storms. And that's your path too. The world says defend yourself, clap back, prove your worth. Machiavelli wouldn't respond. Because the one who speaks first seems defensive. The one who speaks last seems decisive. But the one who says nothing, they become untouchable. Your silence becomes a Rorschach test. Some think it's dignity. Others think it's mystery. Your enemies see it as threat. It's not about being a stoic statue. It's about evolution. You want to clear it up, tell your side, scream your truth. But Machiavelli wouldn't fight lies with words. He'd drown them with results. He'd outwork, outlast, and outperform. Because when you argue with rumors, you validate them. The presence they can't predict. And that's how influence grows. Not because you chased it. When your pauses have more weight than your words. When your detachment isn't an act, it's your default. And the people around you feel it, even if they can't explain it. It was emotional sovereignty, the ability to own every feeling without being owned by any. You stop bleeding. You don't stop feeling. You start choosing. You don't stop loving. You just love in silence until the moment it has power. But because your stillness became the only solid ground in a world full of noise. But when you ignore them and rise anyway, you turn critics into footnotes. You've grown past guilt, past the need for a validation, past the compulsion to be understood or forgiven. Why aren't you opening up like before? If you cared, you'd tell me. Translation, I used to control you emotionally. Now I can't. And that scares me. And the ones who can't respect that, they don't stay. You don't reject your feelings. You own them. You channel them. You use them like tools, not shackles. You become the architect of your inner world. If someone constantly uses your emotions against you, you don't owe them more emotion. You owe them distance. You deflect. You don't strike back. You reposition. You don't explode. You observe. And eventually, the game collapses because you refuse to play. But you do what Machiavelli would do. You do nothing. Not because you threatened it, but because it couldn't get energy from you. You wait. You breathe. You let the silence stretch. And when you speak, if you speak, you say, "Interesting point. I'll think about that." No fight, no fuel, no vulnerability. You are no longer the emotional soldier fighting every battle, chasing every apology, trying to prove you're enough. You don't ask anymore. What should I say? If you cry, beg, over-explain, they win. Machiavelli wouldn't give them that satisfaction. He wouldn't even meet their energy. He'd simply say, "We'll revisit this when the emotions cool." Or let's not ruin respect trying to win the moment. Emotional people are easy to consume. They confess too soon, apologize too fast, bleed just to be seen, burn out just to keep others warm. This isn't about acting cold. It's not about posturing like you don't care. If Machiavelli could give one final rule, it wouldn't be "don't feel." It would be this: don't let them know you feel unless it strengthens your position. Because real power doesn't come from not feeling. It comes from being indecipherable. No one can destroy what they can't define. No one can control what they can't read. No one can manipulate what doesn't flinch. You don't explain your piece. You don't defend your standards. And when someone finally asks, "How did you become like this?" you don't give them a speech. You give them a truth. I stopped letting the world teach me how to feel and started teaching myself when to feel. That's the shift. That's the turning point from chaos to clarity. You're tested constantly now. Not just in private, but in public. So how do you apply this in real life precisely? Tactically, without apology. Someone tries to provoke you. They're fishing for your reaction. They want you to explode. Defend yourself. Expose your weakness. They walk away confused because you didn't give them the scene they practiced in their mind. Whether it's a partner, a parent, a friend, emotional manipulators crave proof they've gotten to you. That's not coldness. That's emotional martial arts. You don't absorb the hit. Someone tries to bait you online. A nasty comment, a message dripping in provocation. You didn't fight back. You didn't need to. You made them look obsessed. And then there are those people who mistake control for love. Machiavelli wouldn't flinch. His love, like his strategy, was never reactive. It was deliberate. Emotional stillness isn't just for you. It teaches others how to treat you. It says, "I don't react. I reposition." You might be in a phase right now where your name's being discussed behind your back. You're being misunderstood, framed. Doubt is spreading, and nobody remembers the footnotes. Over time, people stop testing you. The buttons they once pushed, they don't work anymore. The drama that used to find you, it goes quiet. You become the calm they can't shake. You'll know you've arrived when your boundaries speak for you. So know you're not becoming heartless. You're becoming whole. Machiavelli didn't train to feel less. He trained to feel with precision. His goal was never numbness, and that, in the end, is what detachment really is. It's not apathy. It's vision. You don't stop caring, and that's when you realize you're no longer reacting to the world. The world is reacting to you.